Hello and welcome to this mini training session, Take Control of Trimble Connect. Thanks you all for signing up for this, and we're gonna run this session in approximately 2 hours, less than 2 hours. We're gonna have a break, I think around 50-55 minutes. We're gonna take a break for about 5 minutes more or less, so you can just get another cup of coffee. There are possibilities of writing questions in the chat, so what we can do is we can answer some of the questions before the break, and we will summarize, go through the rest of the questions at the end of the presentation. And there's a possibility and then to raise your hands as well if you want to have a direct dialogue with us to answer any questions that you might have. So my name is Anders Sandlarsson. With me today I have...
Yeah, my name is Ole Martin Ian, and I'm an applications engineer here at BuildingPoint Scandinavia, working with Trimble Connect, creating extensions and plugins, and also, helping customers get the most out of Trimble Connect.
And also behind the wheel of this conference, we have Thomas with us, who's handling all the cameras and sound and everything. So if something is happening or you don't hear us or something, just write it into the chat and we will fix it immediately, or try to anyway. Hopefully everything goes okay. It did yesterday when we ran the similar session, but in Swedish and Norwegian. So the agenda we have set up for this mini training session for Take Control Trimble Connect, that we're going to run through a brief introduction, and then we're going to go into Trimble Connect as an overview, what this includes. Then we're going to go into setting up a project and small things you need to think about when you start up your project in the beginning. We're going to start with a 3D viewer, and this is a small change to the agenda because we're going to have a break in the middle of that. And then after we are finalized, finished with the 3D viewer presentation, we're going to go into the take control part when we take an actual project, and we're going to, how do we go at and analyze the information, set it up, and break it down. Then we're gonna summary and finish. That's about it.
Yeah.
And if there are anything, we're gonna change something. Yesterday we had a lot of discussions regarding what's next, so we're gonna have a brief introductions what we are planning for next in this webinar series at the end of this presentation as well. Just to start, we have just one slide regarding BuildingPoint. What we do. So we are focusing mainly on 3 different areas regarding our technology. Is that the software solutions, where basically we've been working with Tekla now since in the middle of the 90s. So we're working with BIM since 95, 96. So now it's other applications here as well as Trimble Connect as a central part of this we're going to discuss today. We have some field technology, hardware that we are started up with 2 years ago, especially on the scanning and survey devices, and as well as connect this to augmented and mixed reality. So our mission, or vision at least, is that we're going to help North European companies connect the building pit information, the physical site, with the digital world, and just transform the information back and forth. So what is Trimble Connect? Trimble Connect is a communication platform for all project participants. So it's a way to connect the information, or the right information, to all participants at the right time. So therefore it's always updated. And it's defined as a CDE, a common data environment. So it's a cloud platform where it's possible just to store data, share data, and deliver data on all different types, not only structural objects, but also if you have scanning information or other project information that you might need, drawings and stuff. And for us in BuildingPoint, we see this as, we have focused Trimble Connect as production tool, more or less. So we we have been focusing mainly on the how to design, BIM design for a long time, for the last 15-20 years. To add a lot of information into the design, add a lot of properties, and send that to the building owners or the contractors. But now the contractors on the building site, they want to scale down the information and present it in another way to the actual workers. So what we see Connect is just a collaboration thing to the actual building job site. And then they're going to have full transparency. Of course, you can hide away information in Trimble Connect and you don't want to share with everyone, but we emphasize just full transparency in the project. As well as it's easier for the workers, if they're working with a drawing-less project, they can actually add information into the project, into Trimble Connect directly, that give them the possibility to report progress or report issues of the current project they are involved in. We talk a little bit about the information breakdown, how to break down a huge IFC model into work packages. We're going to come back to this afterwards. A little bit what Ole Martin is going to present in the after break, I believe. It's more or less after the break.
Yes.
And also, of course, it's important how to connect the information in Trimble Connect to other systems as well. So the effectiveness and the methodology that we are looking into is how to build this as a company tool, more or less, or a product tool, and give them a possibility to create a BIM workflow with information flowing in from the contractor, from the owners, from the engineering, into what you need to achieve or do, and break it down. And then there's another way that we are also thinking about how to able to make this easier to use. Therefore, we possibly we need to develop some viewer applications or plugins to Trimble Connect to make some of the workflow easier, or integrate those to other systems. We are working with that as well on BuildingPoint. So a little bit more, just one pitch. What we do with Trimble Connect is not only the selling software, we're project focused. So therefore, we like to be involved in projects to develop, the workflows, the way to do things, and training in projects. Or these are either if you work on a project-based solution, or if you want to go to company-based. We talk about buildable requirements, advisory services that you get. Sometimes you get models that are not, fully as good as we're going to present today. That's more often than that you receive something lacking of information, stuff like that, or lacking the right property sets to build a good workflow. So we do advisory services on that. And the innovation bit is really interesting, because Trimble Connect is an open API, so therefore it's possible for us to program directly into the system. So if there are anything that you want to have developed to make it more effective, we can do that as well. Oh, sorry, a slide jumped in there. Just the Trimble Connect overview. We're going to run through this pretty fast, because some of you have seen it before, maybe some of you are new, so therefore we want to run it, the common basics. So we are dividing into two main categories. You have the normal, what you get from the Trimble Connect, the free version or the browser. But we're going to focus mainly in this presentation on the more advanced BIM tools. So therefore, I'm going to run through the basics first, and we're going to use mainly the BIM tools for what we're going to do afterwards. So data sharing is more that you want to, build up something in the information folder. You want to stash all the information into folder structure, and you create that for either a project standard or a company standard solution. So therefore, if you have a company setup, you can have a setup for all projects, or if you want a project-based solution, so you can do the both. All activities in Trimble Connect are tracked, so therefore it's also possible to go back and see who's done what. So that it's a huge benefit. Instead of sending and receiving emails, you don't know who gets what information eventually. There is file versioning is So you actually have legacy data in the system. So if you upload a new version, if you use the right name, is the correct or the same name more or less,
yeah,
then it's get to a new version. But if you change the name and you have your own revision and control, it ends up like a new file. So don't do that. Just short tip. You maybe have tried it, but don't do it. So if then you have, you know, the tree model that you see all the different versions you have uploaded to the system. You have both a 2D and a 3D viewer in Trimble Connect. So here is visualized as a PDF viewer, but you also have a DVG viewer that you can actually use, like lightweight DVG software, we call it like that. So you can try that one out as well. There's a possibility to create views, and you know, to-dos is more like tasks. You can set tasks to other person and communicate within the system, and also have annotations. We're gonna go through all these in the 3D viewer presentation. But also there is something new here that we discovered actually before. We knew that was coming, but it was we discovered it directly before when we set up this, that they have Trimble just released a beta version of topics. So the feedback we got yesterday, we're going to set up a separate session regarding topics that we're going to go through what it is and how you can use it. In short, is to set up information connected to objects or you know, coordinate points in a model to communicate with other systems. Therefore, you can. It's what do you call it? Communicate, you know, system to communicate with our programs or other BIM software, essentially.
Yeah, BCF is an open format for issues. So the BCF, when you create an issue and have it model related, the BCF will retain where in the model is this issue related. So you can export it out from Trimble Connect and into other BIM tools using the BCF format.
There's also a possibility to see both 2D and 3D model at the same time, and gives some benefits and gives a better overview. And when it comes to the more advanced BIM tools, we're gonna take a deeper look into property sets. It's a way to actually to go through and have the first analyze of your BIM model and to see how the project is. And also we're gonna at least take a look at, we're gonna create some custom property sets and why it's a benefit to use custom property sets on a model. This is just project-based property sets, so therefore it's not written back to the IFC model, and that was one of the questions we had yesterday.
Yeah.
So it's just for your project, so you can exactly building different way to do it. And we're going to take a deeper look into data table as well. Data table for us is something that we use very often to set up lists. When we have taken a look at the property sets and found out something that we can actually use to structure the information in the models, we used data table to set up lists that we can use and reuse in model, as well as using the data table to export reports out of the system. But we also use the data table to set up a structure that we import into the organizer. So the organizer, as I mentioned, we can use the data table structure to import it and build a work breakdown structure in the organizer. But it's also a possibility to, you know, start from scratch, just build up your work breakdown structure in the organizer, then you can add information to the different tasks in that or in that structure. So you can example build it down like project phases, object types, location, depends on what you try to actually visualize. Then we can further on use that organize view sets and create views, so you can communicate easier. I think we have done some of those in the presentation later on.
Yeah.
And this last thing in advanced tool, there's two common ways to do this. There is a status sharing tool that you can actually use that's in there. We haven't done that too much. We have tried it out. More often we use custom property sets to help out with the status. Then we can define what is important for that, for example, for rebar, if it's ordered. I think that's one of the use cases as well. Or if it delivered, or so we can set different property sets to draw out specific information that we can list out or report out afterwards. But all this information that you have set up as a coordinator or a project manager or needs to be communicated out in the field. So therefore, there's many possibilities to communicate Trimble Connect out in the field. You have, we're going to use the browser version of Trimble Connect. I didn't mention that earlier, but that's one option, that you have computer on site that you can take a look at and draw into information. More often you have a tablet or a phone with you out on the site. So that's really normal. The phone is actually that you can use both, see the model as in the application for Trimble Connect. Also, you can visualize it in AR, the same model. So you can choose when you activate it. Other gadgets, like the same product you can use with an HoloLens helmet, for example. So we use that a lot as well. So there are many ways you can communicate out this into the field. So that was the first overview of Trimble Connect. And next thing we're going to go through is the project setup. And things you need to think about when you start up the project. This is also some of the basics, but there are some things that we need to think about. The first thing when you start a new project is that you need to have a new project name. And if you want to upload a picture, if you have a picture of project, it's nice to have there as well. It's easier to find a project in your project. If you have several hundred projects you're involved in, it's easier to find. The server location is where it should be placed in the cloud. So that's something you can change afterwards as well. But the product ownership is something that I emphasized yesterday as well, because Trimble Connect is more open, broadly advanced, and if some of the things that we talk about take control is actually taking control of who has the ownership of the project. So therefore, when I start a new project, I have 4 different, project owners I can choose from, and I have 3 different in Scandinavia. One is, that you see here on the screen is the army there, so that is my employer that owns the brand BuildingPoint Scandinavia, and but I also have 3 more, and one of those is in New Zealand because I've been working a little bit with tested out Connect AR with the Trimble down there, and so it happened quite sometimes that actually pops up in New Zealand as ownership of my projects, and therefore I need to change it. But just keep that in mind, because then when you choose the right product, then it comes down to the product license. So if you have chosen the right product, you can choose the product license type you need. And there are many different licenses out there of Trimble Connect versions of it, but we operate mainly with the free versions. There are the enterprise solution for companies that you have a license agreement for all users in the company or their subcontractors, and the one that we're using now is a business premium license, and as we heard yesterday, it's different a little bit from business premium from what we are doing and what you get from some when you get it along with other software. And we have the business license as well. There's always a free version out there as well, but we're going to focus today on what is involved in the business premium license that we're going to use. So open project and create folder, upload files. This is really easy, but you can build actually or copy some of the project folders that you set up in previous projects, or you have a company setup that you need to use. Create that first, and then you can add, for example, if you add a folder, or if you want to start up a SketchUp model directly, or I think that if every picture I have is in Norwegian and you have is in English, so yes. Therefore it's a little bit mixture, but
it's a good mix. Yeah.
So if you have an area information as well, so you can upload that. And you know, I got a question yesterday. I'm gonna produce this link after the election because I set up this just all the supported formats for Trimble Connect. So we're gonna send this link out where you can find this, but then you have divided into to have the browser version, the Windows version, and you have the mobile version. So therefore, it's a good overview if you're gonna set it up, if you can communicate the information and set up for your product to your product participants. So therefore, it's a good overview to have. The next thing is just the view team, invite users groups, and the first thing we recommend is to just set up all the user groups or the teams, the user groups that you have. If it might be many, and you can probably add on during the project as well, because the project has different phases. But to set up a good structure in the beginning, when so you can add personnel to teams directly instead of creating teams and add personnel afterwards, it's preferable. And to invite, you can either do it manually, you can write in an email address and just choose if they're going to be user or admin, or you can do export, and export when you've set up the groups. You can export the file a spreadsheet that you receive in your inbox, and then you can add loads of information into that, define which group they're going to be in, structure all the participants if you want to, then import it back to Trimble Connect. Then all the users get a notification on email that you're a part of a project, so you can just click here and log in. And then you can just, I'm gonna go back a little bit about assigning tasks into persons, stuff like that. But then you go into the next is just you want to assign permissions, and you want to assign who's going to be responsible for what and what they're gonna see, and if they're gonna change or delete something, especially if they won't be able to delete something. So this is something we had a discussion as well, a question regarding yesterday as well. Permissions on, we set it on the folder level. So there are group or personal restrictions. Admins have anything by default. I think there was a question yesterday, is there a possibility to just draw it on, just add a person or something like that?
Yeah.
Or a personal restriction?
Yeah, you can, it's as mentioned, folder oriented. So the permissions are set on the folders. When you add users, they can either be admins or ordinary users, and what they have access to will be dependent on properties that you set on the folder. So when you set up the permission strategy for your project, you will, for certain folders, land that, well, this folder is by default hidden for everyone, but then I add exceptions to that folder that say that this group or these members have access and can change what's in that folder. And as we see here as well, we have 3 levels, where the one is full access. You can add new versions of files, delete files. The second is read only, where you can open and view the files. It's visible to you, but it's not possible to delete or add new versions of the files. And the third one is no access, where the folder will not appear at all. It will not be visible, and you cannot open it, and you cannot view what's inside. And again, it's the whole permission strategy is set around the folders. So the files themselves do not have these permission settings. It works the way that the files inside the folder inherits whatever permission setting is set on the folder.
So this is actually good, because one of the contractors we've been working with, he said is the training for the workers out in the field, that is said, you can't do anything wrong with it. So here is is a tablet, go home, click on everything, find out for yourself, and come back on Monday and we discuss. So So that was his approach to it, but he have set, you know, restrictions to everyone so he couldn't mess up the model or the workflows they built into it. So that was actually a good thing for him. I've been through this previously, but all activity is logged. So it's not more to add to this. You can take a look at the activity button. When it comes to status or settings, you can always change some of the information here as well. One other thing that is in Norwegian, sorry to say, but I would translate it. But the thing is, in the bottom and bottom left, you have this. It's a small button there you can put on. It's I can't see it. It's a BCF. I need my glasses. BCF Evner. Yeah. Also, it's BCF topics. You can just add that one and store or save, and then you have it on your projects. But it's a little bit down to let's. If you want to erase a project, you will erase it forever. So that actually pops up in English for you, or for if you have in other languages. So you will erase it forever. We actually had some support cases on that they erased it by mistake. They have set up this more or less a dummy project to test out stuff, and someone else was actually using it to produce information for their workers, and therefore it got a little bit hectic when I erased it. But we can't open it up again.
Yeah. So the point is, and in general for projects, for the business and business premium, and of course the enterprise license, you can create and have as many projects as you want. That's unlimited, and the amount of data you can have in your project is also unlimited. It will be a fixed price regardless of the amount of projects and the amount of data you use and have in the cloud. And this last part is if you decide to delete the project, only admin users can do that. But if they decide, it will be very limited, if any, that can be retrieved afterwards. Once it's deleted, it will be deleted, and you will remain with whatever backups the company has taken itself.
So the next topic in the agenda is the 3D viewer overview. So Ole Martin.
Yes. Yeah, as mentioned before, my name is Ole Martin. I work with Anders as on the technical side of things, and specialize in doing services for our customers. We have the Nordics as our customer area, and we will now talk about the 3D viewer. This whole webinar will be mostly regarding the browser version. You can Trimble Connect will exist on the different platforms, as we call it. You can download a piece of software and run it on your computer, as one conventionally does, or you can download and install an app on your tablet or smartphone, or you can open Trimble Connect directly in the browser, and that also works on tablets. Best on tablets. Smartphones tend to have a bit smaller screen. So, but again, the browser version will be the focus here, and the focus will be the 3D viewer, where you open models or DVGs. And the reason for that is that the browser version has some functionality that are very practical, which you only can use in the browser version. So here goes. We will, in general, just give an overview of the 3D viewer. We will go through, I think, almost everything in there, every toolbar, every side panel, and the functionality there. And we want to let everyone know what's there. So when you use Trimble Connect, you will find efficient ways to get what you want.
And it's going to be recorded and shared with you. So if the tempo is too fast, you can get a recording afterwards. You can go backtrack and see in details.
So before the first part of the 3D viewer presentation will be a lot of basics, and some use cases, but then the last part will be more use cases where we see how the different tools work together. But in general, the 3D viewer is where you will view the models, put models together, manage the content, and yeah, work with the models. You can gain overview and group and sort by properties. And you can also collaborate using to-dos, where different tasks that need to be done in the project, which are model oriented, maybe model improvements or information improvements, is defined as tasks and associated with the model objects. I would also like to mention that we have different types of settings for the 3D viewer. That's in the menu at the top left, where you can set different preferences and also turn off and on different display and performance options, where if you turn everything off, you would go for maximum performance. But if you turn everything on, you will go for maximum quality. And we will now see what sort of settings are available for big models and a lot of detail. This may be relevant. You have preferences setting the background color, depending on if you have DWG drawings in the model, you might want a dark background. And you have this display and performance switches, which lets you turn off, on and off details, for example, edge lines, shading, different types of highlighting, and also the amount of layers. The transparency will show you if you have different objects within objects, how many objects is visible when you turn on transparency. You also have this level of detail slider, where you can set if details are to be shown. Yeah, how close do I need to be to the detail for it to be shown? So if you have set that to low, it will be, yeah, it will only show the details once you're very close to it. And in the same way of thinking, if you set it to high, it will mostly show detail all the time, which also affects the performance. If you use the browser version on a tablet, they will in general have less computing power than a laptop or stationary computer. So these are, yeah, relevant settings for that. And you also have panels and tables reporting out properties. And here you also set what units and at which precision these properties are shown if it's a number. We will now go on to overviewing what sort of functionality do we have on the toolbar. We have a toolbar at the top, which allows us to yeah, use different tools. Mostly if we want to add or change the appearance of the model in order to save it as a view and share later. We will now see some of the basics. We have a drop-down menu here for camera control, which decides what does the left click do if I left click and drag the mouse. This is also relevant for using touch screens, because on a touch screen you would only have left click. So we have one mode for rotation, and this one is for panning. And we have a separate one for looking around, where we are rotating the camera, you can say, and not the model. The ordinary rotate will rotate the model, and look around will rotate the camera, which is good if you want to look around inside small spaces in the model. We will also show now different ways to manually select objects. We have this usual area select working how we are used to, from left to right. it selects any objects completely within the area. And if we select from right to left, any object touching the edge of the area will be selected. And also, if you're working on a touch screen, for when activating this switch, you would, for successive left clicks, keep selecting new objects and adding them to the selection. And that was quick on different viewer options and how to select objects. I would also like to orient everyone about a few visibility settings. I now use the model tree to show only a part of this culvert. And we'll activate this ghost mode, which allows objects that have the status as hidden. They will be shown as transparent for reference, so you can orient yourself, where am I in the model now? The ghost mode objects will not be selectable. And here we're showing that for the entire model, or those you have in your view, you can adjust the transparency for every object, keeping the objects selectable. And also we have switches allowing you to show or hide different model object categories. For example, rebars. And this is practical for saving performance, saving computer power, because rebars tend to use a lot of resources to show if there's a lot of them. You also have these switches turning on and off the depth of the model, the depth perception of the model. And you also have these switches that allow you to view the model from directly above or from the side. This will be according to the global coordinate system, which is visible down to the right. Yeah. Moving on to the measurement tool. This is a tool that has some more depth to it compared to others. You would have two options mainly. It will be the perpendicular measure and the single point. Here is three different perpendicular measures, where the red one is from point to point, the blue is from a surface to a surface, and the yellow one is from edge to a surface. When placing out measurements, you will be able to select which type of point to snap to. And depending on what you choose as snapping points, if it's a point, a line, or an area surface, it will give you what it thinks is the most fitting and best perpendicular measure. And when you select a measurement, you will notice that the components it consists of is shown. And as we see here, the vertical component is in color and with a capital Z, which means that this component is along the global Z axis. And when you select the measurement, you will get a different kind of toolbar at the bottom there, where you can decide which of the components is to be shown in the model in color. And here we're going to see just some basic use of the measurement tool. Again, I use the model tree to show only a part of the model, and I activate the measurement tool. And when I do that, this measurement toolbar appears, displaying the snapping options, a quick button to create a new view. And we see when I activate the snap to point, I only are allowed to choose corner points. Same for the edge line, and we see the icon is changing color and shape. Now it's blue with this square around, indicating that I'm about to select a surface. So for 2 points, I am getting the point coordinates. That's the one type of measure we can do. The other one is, as mentioned, the perpendicular measure, where you can select one or several types of points that you would like to be able to select now. And now I'm selecting from edge to surface, and from surface to surface between this concrete wall and the other funded, And now between the rail posts, I need to remember that I can only snap to physical points in the model. The midpoint of a pipe or midpoint of a plate is not a physical point in the model. In general, you can have objects which allow you to select those points, but yeah, that's how the measurement tool works, where you would need to have the physical points there to be able to select them. And moving on to clip planes and markups, we have this scissor icon that allows us to create a clip plane on a surface, and we can also move the clip plane later. Each clip plane has its own properties. We can switch direction and also orient the plane in space. We have different types of markups that we can place out in the model. Here is a revision cloud, and I'm changing the size and changing the color, adding again some measurements. And these are all, this is all work I'm doing. I'm spending time and clicks in the model, producing something I want to communicate. And the only way to save that is to save that as a view. When you save the model or the current view as a view, any markups, measurements, and what you have selected, what you have hidden or changed color to, that will be saved within the view. Now I'm just adding some arrows, and also finally I'm adding a text markup, also in red, which is a line connected to a small text box, which I can add descriptions to. That was all for the top toolbar. Several manual tools that allows you to select, add measurements, add markups. There's this black toolbar that appears at the bottom of the screen that we'll now take a look at. It only appears when you have something selected. Often when you work in the 3D model, your strategy is oriented around how can I select the objects that I want to see the properties of, or show only, or hide. And that's because the properties panel and hide and show, that's made through this black toolbar, which appears when you have something selected. The object properties is viewed through here with the round information icon. Each object has a set of property sets, and within each set is a set of properties. A property has a property name and a value. A property can have different value types. It can be text, a number. A number can be specified to be weight, area, volume, and so on. All of this is predefined in the model. And those who make the models in this design tool that they work in, they will be able to set up and create an information system in the model. And choosing which property sets have which properties, and that is planned to suit well with how the model is to be archived or how the model is to be worked with later. But again, you have to select an object, and through this black toolbar, hit this information icon to view the property panel for the selected objects. There can be quite many property sets on an object, and the property panel allows you to highlight your favorite properties. And when doing so, you mark it with a star and refresh the panel, and your favorite properties will appear at the top. Here we will look a bit at what one can do when we have selected an object. You can view the information panel, add some files to it, associate some files to it, zoom to selection, change color, and hide. So now we're viewing the properties for this specific model object. You can see it has a custom property set called object information, which before the model is created is planned what sort of content do we need there in reference to how the model is to be used. This model, the goal was to minimize and have very little or no detailed drawings. Now we're changing the color for the selected objects, and we see also that we can reset at any time the coloring to the color it originally has in the model. We can also change the transparency to view the reinforcements inside. And when multiple objects are selected, if they have same properties, they will appear in the list. And if it varies, it will only say that the property varies. And also be able to hide the concrete elements so that I expose the reinforcements. Only then am I allowed to select and take measurements on the reinforcements. Yeah. And yeah, we will now take a 5 minute.
First of all,
okay.
Yeah, it's a couple of things. We said that if we get any questions, we can answer them. First of all,
yeah,
Ole Christian Eishammer from Trimble in Sandvika just mentioned a tip that is really crucial. Yeah, it is. We forgot to mention that. So if you actually administrator for a project and you leave the project without assigning someone else,
yeah,
then the project is without an administration.
Yeah, I think also the Trimble Connect will help you to avoid that it will be weird for Trimble Connect to have a project without admins, but
it is more practical to decide it before than to do it afterwards.
Yeah. You will get a warning, but yeah.
Another question is it possible to make a full export of a finished project?
You can, in different ways, export different project content out.
Yeah.
So you can, for the files, download them. A full, and we're aware of that, but we will a full what's it called, backup of projects, a full solution for that, which every version of every file, every comment on every file, every to-do with every comment, and every referenced file, a complete backup solution for that is not ready. And so you will be able to, for to-dos, you will export your tasks, you can export your files, and you can export your activity log. Those things are separate operations. In any case, we would recommend to have backups of your files locally somewhere, setting up a sync routine using the Trimble Connect sync tool or similar.
That actually was the next question that I had, because the question is how about backups? Do you do it, or should the customer do it, and how? So therefore, we maybe need to send something out on that topic as well.
Yeah, you have this synchronization tool that on a server computer or just a normal computer can download last version of every file routinely, and you would sort of yourself manage that backup, making sure that, okay, the sync is running and we have every week a full download of at least all the files and folders. But in a project, as we've seen, we have different types of content. We have the views, we have the tasks, and we have different, it's called releases. And all those are, and we have the activity log. So in basic sense, we can get most of it out. But it will be separate operations done in the project.
Maybe it's worth investigating if this is something that we can take a look at as well.
Yeah,
because it's not something that are totally in place. It's a possibility to do some backup, but not the full project yet. But we can come back to that. I have a question regarding topics.
Yeah.
Is it possible? What is the possible risk of using BCF topics in the beta version? And about the API integration topics with external tools like Jira, is it implemented yet? And the question is, we don't know.
Yeah, anything regarding the topics is new, but as we have understood it, the topics functionality overlap completely with what is currently in to-dos. So at a certain point in time, topics will, we don't know when, will replace to-dos. So the risk you will take is if you use the topics the way they are now, you would, and if you conform to the way it is now, you would risk that it would change slightly, and you would have to change slightly how you use it. So when it is in beta, you would have to expect that small changes may occur, and if you adapt too much to the way it is now, you may have to re-adapt a bit later in the way you're using it and how you integrate or export things out and use it. And but it looks good that it's in beta now, and we will just have to wait for the development. We know that this is a focus area for Trimble Connect, and they're on it. So it's a matter of time, but we have no idea on the time frame when things will be ready and things will be connected.
But what we are planning, at least after these 2 sessions, that we're gonna focus a little bit, have a focus session on topics as one of the next part of the Take Control Trimble Connect webinar series. So therefore we need to dive into it. But if you have any questions or topics they want to discuss or topics that you want us to focus on, you will get my email after this from so you can just send something, and if there are any questions like that that want to be included in what we're going to focus on, please share that with us as well. Just a comment here, Thomas, is that the comment from the same questions that we got previously, or another comment was the function was included in the old version of BIM sync? Is that the function that the external the topics was in the integration with Jira, or we don't know. We say that we possibly it is probably was, but we don't know actually, so we need to go deeper into this. Export. Yeah.
Let's look at it after the break.
Yep, we can take a look at it after. So let's set a break, and we'll be back here at 10 o'clock.
Yep.
So we start up at 10 in 5.5 minutes. Soon 10 o'clock at least.
Yeah.
In a minute. So, but just there are some questions there, comments we're getting, and this is not the only webinar or mini session we're going to run. We're going to do several, and just give us the feedback that you want to investigate more, or if there are questions regarding topics, backup and stuff like that, and we can take a look at it. Or if it's undeveloped, we can develop it. If you take a look at it, we can talk to Trimble about it. We're already planning, a next webinar to connect what we do in Trimble Connect to the Connect AR. So, but there will come eventually a session on topics as well, and we need to take a look at different things that actually want to see. So therefore, we are going to start the planning after this for some time with Thomas, and so what we're going to do next. But follow us on LinkedIn, because there we're going to post all the next coming webinars. So we're going to use LinkedIn as communication platform for us regarding this. So
yep.
Yes, one thing, it's going to be recording afterwards. I forgot to mention that as well. So everything is going to be recorded and shared with you. So I think I mentioned that a couple of times already, but it's always good to do it again. So Ole Martin.
Yep. And yeah, wrapping up the export and backup and what you can get out of the project, and we will not go any deeper into that now, but there are different ways to explore the different project content out, and you will get yeah, and that will be what you can take as a backup, and that will be what you can do as a project export.
But in the cloud sentence, there is always a backup in the cloud, but you need to have a cloud access to use the browser version. So therefore, it's up there.
Yeah, we will now look at more in the 3D viewer. We'll run through the different side panels, which allows us to do stuff. We'll look into the model hierarchy, how it's structured, what type of layers are added, and we can also view the different to-dos, the different views. We can use the organizer tool, which is a business premium tool, and we can also use the data table, which is a very important benefit, which is present in all license types of Trimble Connect, and it allows us to group, sort, and yeah, gain an overview of the model information. The model itself can be broken down in different ways. Yeah, we will talk more about that later. We will first view the models panel, where what I call the physical breakdown structure of the model is defined, and it is something that is the model structure is created by the ones creating the model and exporting it out of their design tools, for example, Tekla structures. The models panel will let you navigate through the entire project and open the folders in this folder tree, and you can show and hide models as you please, putting together several models at once. Here we have a road model in a DVG, 3D DVG format, together with the IFC model. And I can change the mode to let the panel only contain models that are active in the view now. And since I'm not going to use the road model anymore, I have hidden it. We can open up the model structure and see that it is divided into different parts. This is something that needs to be done, so time and effort has been used here to divide the model into yeah, in an organized way, so that we can have the east wall, the west wall in separate categories, making them available with one left click. That is a very powerful thing, because once I can left click a group of objects and it's in an organized manner, I can hide everything else or hide the part I'm selecting. We can also see that within a part of the wall, the different material types are organized as well, allowing me to select the different layers or the concrete. Again, this is the model structure is something that is defined by the design tool where the model originates from. And in this model, a considerable amount of effort and has been made to divide the model into such an organized way. A different breakdown structure can be created as layers, and you have a separate layers panel which allows you to activate and deactivate layers, showing and hiding specific parts of the model. For instance, this model is organized layer wise in a way that any layer starting with 11.203 will belong to the same part of the culvert support wall. And when multi-selecting those and asking those to be shown, I will hide everything else. And that's yet another way the model can be broken down and another tool for which we can traverse the model. The next side panel is the to-do panel. Here, the issues you created and to-dos that has been assigned to you will be visible. You can group by different types of attributes. Here is grouped by priority. And here we will see a quick example on me creating a to-do. And these are 3D model oriented issues. It will be perhaps that I am quality checking dimensions and how the model is about to be built. And I see that, for example, this gap of 100 millimeters, this is too narrow. It should be wider, just as an example. So I use my toolbar to add some annotations and some text to communicate, keeping it model oriented. And when I create a to-do, the view angle and whatever I have added to the view in terms of measurements and annotations will be saved as an attachment to the to-do. You can also add any kind of attachment to the to-do. It can be attached to model files or other types of the project files, drawings, PDFs, or other types of models. Now I've saved the to-do and we will view how it appears. Once I've selected it with one click in the to-do side panel, the view contained in the to-do and the information within the to-do is visible. And I can also add comments and we can collaborate and plan our work as to-dos. And we have mentioned views a couple of times. That is another way to break down the model. You can, one person can spend time showing and hiding parts of the model and saving those as views, allowing the view panel to be a starting point when getting to view what you need to view in a certain situation. So here's an example shown where I've created one view group for each section of the culvert. And within that view group, I can name and create views that show parts of it, parts of the concrete with rebar, perhaps only rebar. And if that is organized and kept tidy, users in this project can orient themselves and find what they need in the views panel if you have chosen that for as part of the model breakdown. Views can be assigned to groups or users, or they can be added as attachment in to-dos. So I didn't mention that earlier, but To-dos is also a way to break down the model. You can create to-dos as work packages, and in each to-do you will have your description, your documents, and related views. And when someone is performing a set of work on a part of the culvert, they will find the correct to-do, and everything is contained within there. Here we will see a quick example on creating a view. I will again utilize the breakdown structure within the model tree, which I can see in the models panel. Select a part of the culvert and click show only, and also change the transparency a bit. Within the model tree, for this view, I would like to only have the concrete and rebar. And since I'm familiar with the model, I know that this model tree is organized in a way that I can select anything that's not concrete and rebar in its categories and hide those. For this view, I'm also activating the ghost mode so that when the view is opened, you can easily orient yourself and in reference to which part of the culvert am I now viewing. For the title of the view, I'm adding the position number for this part of the support walls, and also adding a description, and finally assigning them to a view group. And this is an example. If you do this for different parts of the model, is you prepare a view breakdown structure, allowing potentially many other people to quickly find what they need in the view groups. We will talk a bit about the clash side panel. You can do a clash check between models. So you select 2 or more models and specify which version of these models do I want to clash check. And it can be either a clash, a collision, or it can be clearance. And you have some settings you can set here, and you can also share, and each clash performed will be a clash set, and it will remember which models, which versions of which models did you perform this clash check on. And you can also share the clash set with groups or members of the project. And now to one of the important, more important stuff, or what we highlight more in this, and we will look at, more. It's the data table. Recommend everyone to use this more and get familiar to what it can do. It's a dynamic table allowing you to set up a custom column setup. You can group by columns, and each column is representing a property in a property set. So if you have an information structure where, for example, some property associated where the area it belongs to is set on the same property set, you can easily filter and select out objects based on the information in the model. So here we will see a simple example where we use our the data table, and we will, for let's say a part of the culvert, we want to view some quantities, summarize some quantities of some of the properties contained in the model. The data table is so that it can have different modes. You can choose here visible objects, and the content of the table will then only be whatever is visible right there. And if you're familiar with the model and you know about some general properties that any object have as the material. You can sort by material, and by selecting a row, there's only one row with concrete here now. So I'm selecting a row, changing the mode to selected objects. So I'm now able to summarize the values that are given as numbers. The table will summarize them for me automatically. And what I need to do is to filter down and have control of the table content using different strategies, either selecting everything I need to summarize or hide anything I don't want in the table. And we will look a bit more into this later. The final panel we will talk about is the organizer. This is a premium feature which allows you to create your own breakdown structure with different levels. You can have a group with subgroups and connect model objects to each group. And what a group represent can vary. You can simply have a group where every object is pre-sorted by their material. So we just open objects per material and you would have those readily available. And across groups, I can finish that thought. Let's say you have a group sorted by material and a group sorted by profile, for instance. You can get, when selecting one subcategory from the one group and one from the other, you will get the intersection. So if you want every steel beam with a certain profile, you can get that quite easily if you set it up in the organizer. That functionality is inspired, to some extent from the Tekla Structures organizer, for those who are familiar with that. As mentioned, multiple levels, and you connect objects to these groups. The one I've selected here has 33 model objects connected to it. And here we will see some general usage of it. Organizer is available as a side panel, and I will now manually create a group with a couple of subgroups. And the quick example here is I want to, for those that are in the on-site laying out the rebars, I want them to first open Organizer and find the relevant group to so that they can quickly select the objects they need to select and to show them easily. So for a separate part of the culvert, I will create a group, and I will have two subgroups, one which will contain the concrete and one which will contain the reinforcement. And these groups work in a way so that I have to have something selected in the model and then choose connect, and then the selected object will be associated with the given group. And now, utilizing the well-made structure in the model tree, I will select the part of the culvert that is relevant now. And also in combination with the data table, I can group whatever is visible on some general property. Again, here I'm using material. I will want in my organizer to have concrete in one group and reinforcement in the other, and I can separate those out easily from the given material. And this is also, as a comment, possible only if the information is good and consistent. I can separate out the reinforcement because the material and information on it is consistent. So what I did now was, through the data table, select the concrete, and while they are selected, I can bind them to an organizer group and I did the same for the reinforcement. And that was made easy because I sorted it on the on what material they have. And now for a general case, I'm opening the model. I will have this part of the culvert with a left click only. I can select the whole culvert or this part of the culvert. And same as for the subgroups, I can select the subgroup, one left click, and I have the thing selected, which plays well with if I want to show or hide everything else, or if I want to report out something. And we will come back to more organizer and data table in a bit. Quickly, we will mention again the custom properties. This is metadata we can add to the projects. It's custom user properties that we define for the project. A simple use case may be a status. For example, for reinforcement, I can implement and create for this model. Has these reinforcements been ordered? Have I sent this to the manufacturer? And the custom properties can be several types. It can be a simple true or false. It can be free text, a drop-down list of content you decide yourself. And more. Any custom property will play along well with the data table. You can create a custom report in the data table, reporting out your custom properties. And as we will see later, you can create automatic rule-based organizer groups based on ordinary properties in the model, but also the custom properties. So that was all the panels and also custom properties which we have seen, and we will now move on to the take control part, where knowing now about nearly everything we can do in the 3D viewer, we can familiarize ourselves with the model. We can have different breakdown structures. We can create our own, and we have several strategies to choose from. And in your project, you may make available several of them at once. You may have to-dos planned out, and you have views in your to-dos. You may have your organizer structure manually created or rule-based, or the view panel divided neatly into view groups, or you may have a very good layer setup so that the users will first go into layers and find the correct layer they're looking after.
So as Ole Martin mentioned a couple of times, there are definitely a model that is grouped and been, an effort to put in information, to have the information structure in a good way. But that, not in every project we have that information. Thanks, Thomas, looking into the right camera. But the thing is that most common that you are in a bid or something like that, you get a crappy model, and then you need actually to add some value to it, to do some quantity calculations. Then you can use, for example, properties. So set properties to different object groups, then you can use them easily to do calculations. And as well as if you have different properties that you need to use on your project, we come back to that. For one example, we can do that on several things that you can add on value or make it more efficient. So what we are been using now and going to continue using is the project called E6 Vamkrysset. It's from what do you call it? The Norwegian Road Agency or something like that. Statens vegvesen. So actually, what you get from the model, basically in this example that we're going to use, that you get the model, all the properties, the structure of the information flow, and you can divide it down to work breakdown structure in the organizer. Then, in this example, you just put in the different walls types, and what we want to achieve from that is, the dotted line in between is that when it's not working, breaking down the information more in Trimble Connect. So actually what we talked about at the beginning, that we want to actually produce some work packages that so you can deliver to all the workers in the field. So therefore, how we are focusing more like how can you break it down to the, so you have all the information regarding formwork, rebars, how much concrete it is, and UK and OK stands for in Norwegian overkant and underkant armering. It's if you have a foundation or a slab, then we're talking about the top bars or the bars beneath. So we divide those into different. So it's easier for the worker actually to understand, what type of rebars goes in first, and you can click on and get the number of it, the distance between the rebars and the bending form and everything. And then we're gonna briefly go into, when we have that structure, we're gonna break it down into, reports, how we can use it for reports. And something we didn't mention yesterday, that it's more common that you have this CSV export from Trimble Connect, but you can post-process that into tools as well. Someone is using Power BI, for example, to set up connection between the reports from Trimble Connect into other, systems they have internally. So that's a brief introduction on the next phase of this presentation.
Yeah. So what we're also trying to show is for the model you have, it will be at a certain quality level. It needs to be above a certain threshold for it to be usable, because as you see, if I want to have overview of information, it has to be consistent, and it has to be some sort of system allowing me to group and sort based on information. And the model will have what I call a physical breakdown structure, which you can view in the models panel, but it will also have a information breakdown structure where different, if this rebar belongs to this part of the culvert, it will have a property saying that. And in that way, I can sort out on parts of the culvert easily, and I can easily create my own breakdown structure in Organizer. So both the physical breakdown structure of the model and the information system and the information breakdown structure affects how buildable the model is when we're talking about limiting the amount of drawings necessary to show details. So this is a project, this culvert is part of a project where they would attempt to have little or no detailed drawings, and therefore having more information on the model objects, and they would have a better setup of the model, physical model breakdown. And with the good information and a good model breakdown, we can make better use of Trimble Connect.
Yeah, it's a good structural requirements for this project as well.
Yeah. So as mentioned, to me or to us, a model has a physical breakdown structure, and it has a information-wise breakdown structure. For instance, if every object in model has the same property on the same property set, telling us which part of the model are you contained in, then we can easily sort out the whole model in terms of the parts it's divided into. And and that affects how well the model is usable in a viewer. In this case, we are using Trimble Connect. And it also affects how buildable the model is. So early engagement, early involvement, and making it clear what sort of requirements do we put on the model breakdown structure, what sort of requirements do we set on the model, the information system. That's a really important part of the model quality and how well the model is usable in a viewer and how buildable it is. We will take a closer look at how we can utilize the model structure and information structure using the data table. And we will, for this bottom layer in purple, consisting of gravel, we want to create a custom report so that we can quickly be able to list up some selected properties related to these types of objects. Firstly, I identify, okay, what separates them out in terms of material. That's a good general property to sort objects out to. And once I've done that, I will, for what is visible now, and while having grouped the table on material, I will be able to select the types of objects I want to see and work with now. And I will now create a custom column setup. Each column in the table represents a property. So I'm now viewing, okay, what sort of relevant properties do these types of objects have? And I will then create a column setup, which will present me with those properties so I can create, have them visible in the table, sort by those properties, and also report quantities out based on them. So I open this columns dialog, and I create a new preset for a column setup, which will effectively become a report. In this left list, I'm able to search within every property set and every property that is available to me in the model. And what I'm doing now is adding properties to my list on the right, and they will become my column setup. And the first property in the list to the right will be the first column, and so on. And as you see, if the property has a value that can be summarized, I can have this summarize icon active, and the table will then summarize for me automatically those values. So now I have created my custom column setup, and in the drop-down menu to the right, you can see the name I added to it. So that is saved now, and I can have several column setups. And when having my column setups and using changing the mode of the table to be visible or selected, and also when grouping, and I can have several layers of groups. I can have subgroups added. I can, become very familiar with the model and have good control of the model information. And again, I can select groups or single objects in the table, which allows me to zoom to, hide, show, and also view the information. Another use example is doing an information check. When the table allows us to sort and create custom column setups, we can do quick information checks. Let's say, for example, that any concrete object should have certain types of information put on it, these Brutus code and Brutus name. So I will create a column setup allowing me to populate the data table with those properties that I want to check. Because then I can group and I can see if any in the entire model, or if any objects are missing these properties when they should have them. So I'm now, based on the properties I view in the properties panel, created a column setup. Again, sorting on the material, I want to view if anything which has a concrete material has these properties set on them. So I select the objects I want to check in the model. I select show only and change the mode to visible objects. So now I've listed up everything with concrete. And while grouping on one of the properties, I see that 4 concrete elements are missing this property. And I can, through the table, select the objects and then orient myself to see which objects is this regarding, and I can double check by selecting them, opening the properties panel, and see that they are, yeah, indeed missing. And this type of issue or potential for improvement can be communicated directly to other members in the project. So when I find this, I can create a to-do right away. And having selected the objects, I can also put more effort into communicate visually which objects I'm talking about. I add a name, description, priority, and I assign it directly to someone who's in charge of having the information correct in the model. And they will get an email notification that this to-do is created. And they will also get to view my description and priority and so on. And when I have objects selected, the to-dos actually get attached to the model objects themselves. So as we see here, we have these to-do icons attached to these concrete elements. The next example will be a bending list. If the reinforcement in the model has sufficient information, I can create my column setup to work as a bending list, and we will also see what it looks like when we export the data table content out. So again, I'm using the breakdown structure contained in the model through the model side pane to be able to show only the concrete and reinforcement. A general property I'm using to filter and group the model on now is the class. Every reinforcing bar is likely to be an IFC reinforcing bar within the IFC model. So now through the data table, I have hidden anything but the reinforcing bars. And when I select just a arbitrary bar, I can see what type of information I want to get out. And here's a custom property set specifically for reinforcement. So I will create a new column preset, which will be saved and can be shared with other members. And I can search on a property set or property names. And in the list, my search results, I will add different types of properties I would like to have to my list. And there is the amount of properties on a reinforcement bar will vary, and some important things that we would like to have is, for example, weight or length, and it is important that the IFC file then has these properties defined as numbers with the unit. So then Trimble Connect can interpret them correctly and summarize them correctly. So we have now created a custom column setup, and they have a property which allows us to divide them into which part of the wall does the rebar belong to. At any time, I can, for whatever content is in the table, I can export the content out as a CSV file, which then can be imported into Excel or other software that will process that information. This can, for example, be an order I make that for, based on the information in the model, I will manage my data table content and create reports based on that. The next example will be somewhat related to the other one. We will show how the rule-based organizer works. as well as building on that scenario, what I would like to take quantities out, for example, bending lists out of the model and send them to the manufacturer, but at the same time give those reinforcement bars a property that lets me know that, okay, these have been ordered. So firstly, I will check some information on the reinforcement bar. I have this custom property added where which will work as a status. Have these been ordered or not? I will, in my data table, create a column setup based on these custom properties. And I will be able to search those up and add them as columns. I will save my new column setup, and now for everything in the model, I'm able to group on these custom properties and other properties I've added. So I will, based on the material, highlight and select the reinforcement bar in the model, and I will group every reinforcement bar on whether they have status as being ordered or not. So we can now say that parts of the model has stated that they have been ordered, and I will now for some more parts of the culvert change the custom property. But I think I firstly save the current grouping. I save the current grouping as a rule-based organizer group, which means the group and subgroups are automatically created based on the grouping I have in the table, and which objects are linked to which groups is dependent on whether they have true or false on that ordered status property. And what I will now show is that for some other parts of the model, position number 10 and 11, I will select all those rebars, and I will set ordered the value to true and add a date as well. And we will see now that when I refresh this rule-based organizer group, the rule is those that have status to true will be in a separate group. So now we'll see that the new part of the culvert, the reinforcement bars from the new part of the culvert has been added to the true category. Finally, example of a custom model breakdown structure where based on the part of the culvert wall, we have one group per part, and each part is breaking down into relevant subgroups and we can keep breaking it down to concrete and every rebar in the foundation and split it up more and more. The idea is again to have things and relevant groups of objects selectable with one click so that we can view its properties or hide them easily. And once we have filtered out our view, we can list up our the current content of the view with our predefined column setups. Here we're using the one we created for reinforcement. And this is an example of how the organizer and data table plays well with each other, because we can filter out our view and list up things only visible for a predefined column setup. So we see the information we need for the objects that we see. And that was the final
Final slide.
Yep, that was the final video.
No, the final slide.
Yeah. So now we're done with showing 3D viewer and 3D viewer functionality. In short summary, it's basically what we have in our agenda, where we started with presenting ourselves and the Trimble Connect in general, creating project, adding project content. We talked about permissions; those are set on the folder level. Talked about managing our project members, dividing them into groups, and giving them either status as an admin or as a user. And the groups and the users can be assigned stuff. We can create to do and add a whole user group as an assignee or separate project members. And then we went through I think every
button in the 3D viewer.
Every button in the 3D viewer, every toolbar and settings, and also some of the more advanced tools. Very important is the data table, and we talked about breakdown structures that, depending on your project and how you choose to work with it, you can make available different ways of filtering and showing model content.
Yeah, it's a tool to analyze the model when you get it as well.
Yeah.
So you understand a little bit more how it's structured.
Yeah.
Not only the basic model structure, but also the information structure.
So where if the model itself, it will have a breakdown structure up to a certain point, and you can keep grouping and breaking the model down in organizer or otherwise.
So there are many ways to organize the model in Trimble Connect. So therefore, when we talk about the method, we talk about how you need to set up something that is thought through for the company or for the project, so you can continue using the same method throughout the project. So you don't start with different methods to show different breakdown structures in the same project list. So it's a little bit problem.
Then we went down into different side panels. It was a lot of data table usage, how we can group and have control over the data table content. That is very important when we check information and we want to report out quantities. Creating your own column setup, exporting the data table column setting out in CSV file, and also show how you can create rule-based organizer groups. We automatically divide object into categories based on the properties they have. An example I showed was having a status. Have this been ordered? But you can have different types of status. Has this arrived on site? Is it fast and securely? You can have your checklists associated with custom property statuses.
So it's Trimble Connect. You get the input data, then you get into this huge toolbox. Then you have different tools you can use. You need a way to use them properly and consistently. Then we can export the information out of the system as well. So that summarizes most, I think everything that we've been through today, more or less. This speedy introduction training that we have of Take Control Trimble Connect, and we're gonna open up the mic soon. Thomas will handle that. It's possible to ask questions. Just raise your hand, and we will, address you with your first name only. If you raise your hand, Thomas will unmute you. Otherwise, if you don't get any questions now within the coming 10 seconds, probably not. It's still time, but at least we want to thank you for participating in this first session of Take Control Trimble Connect series. And just give us some feedback. I love to get a short email if there is something that you're missing, something that we can improve on, or topics that you want to discuss further on, or everything that you have in your mind. So just, I think it's gonna send us you're gonna get some email from us.
Yes.
To get an email that you have a link to my email address.
Link to the recording.
And link to the recording as well. So
follow us on LinkedIn.
Follow us on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Is from the captain behind the
Yeah.
wheel. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.